Hey guys, what is going on today? We are checking out a new YouTuber on the Warhammer front. Well, he's not new to Warhammer, he's just new to my channel because I have never ever watched a video from this guy. Wolflord Row we are checking out today. This video is titled The Order the Primarchs Were Found, which is very interesting. We've touched on it a few times. I know Horus was first. I know Leman Russ was very early on. I can't remember the order, right? I don't remember the entire order. Yeah, I want to know what order they were found, man, and I thought it was a great chance to introduce us to another Warhammer YouTuber, and I know a lot of you guys have wanted me to check out this guy's videos for a long time, and I just haven't. So yeah, we're gonna check out this video from him. Be sure to subscribe to his channel. He's actually almost at 30k subs, so go support him, bro. Hopefully he gets to 30k subs soon, and shout out to him, of course. Of course, you can also subscribe to me, and while you're here, after this video, you might as well check out my Warhammer playlist if you're interested in my journey from knowing zero to knowing some more than zero. But anyway, man, we're gonna get into this video. Two quick things I want to say. If you like this camera angle more, be sure to let me know in the comments. Also, leave me some questions for Q&A I'm doing next week, and that's all I have to say. Let's get into the order the Primarchs were found.
Hey everyone, Wolflord Row here. First of all, I hope everyone had a very Merry Christmas and a happy holidays with your
this video was released on Boxing Day, by the way.
Your families. For those of you which maybe the holiday season is a little tough time, I hope this video gives you a little distraction from that. Today we're doing something a little different and taking a look at the order in which the Primarchs were found, and of course any interesting notes or takeaways we can learn from that. Many of you will know this already, but it's quite an often asked question I receive, so I thought a video covering the topic would be the best solution. So without further ado, let's just jump straight in. So throughout the years, the order of the Primarchs being found has been jumbled and contradicted wherever you look. So it's no surprise people have been confused, especially when you have the Primarchs being numbered along with their legions in order of founding. Lionel Johnson and the Dark Angels, for example, are the first, yet the Lion was the 11th Primarch found.
Yeah, that is confusing. Like, everybody has a number of what legion they are, or what their legion is, first, second, third, blah blah blah. But that's not the order they were found, because I know Horus was the first, and he's not the first legion, obviously. I don't know what the numbers correlate to, though. It's like, I know it's the gene seed they used was the number they are the order they were created in. Like, was the Lionel Johnson the first Primarch that the Emperor created, and then he went like that? I don't know.
After the scattering. So it's easy to see where people can get confused. But if you search the internet enough, you can find the order of the Primarchs finding used by the Black Library. And if it's used by the Black Library and the Horus Heresy series, it's basically as official as it can get. But even with this, we have to understand the Heresy series has been so long running that they often retcon and contradict themselves. Some of the earlier novels in the series, for example, may have little differences to this list. However, at whatever point they made the list, this basically became canon for all intents and purposes. So, without further ado, the first found son was none other than Horus Lupercal. And so the fate of the galaxy was set, as it's always been a really interesting what-if scenario for me, in that what if Horus wasn't the first found Primarch? What if he never got to spend all that time alone with his father, the Emperor?
I mean, there is definitely an argument to be made that Horus was their favourite Primarch. He did get War Master. Could you imagine if maybe Leman Russ or Sanguinius was found first? You could potentially make the argument that they could have been War Master, right? And a lot of people thought that those two were better options, especially Sanguinius. You know, I always ask about the eyes on Horus. Do they represent that, like, was it Greek mythology or Roman mythology? Like, the Eye of Horus? Like, I don't know if anyone knows the story about it. Like, where Horus fought the guy from the underworld guy, and then he lost his eye. Like, and his eye represents that. And his eye represents something. I can't remember what his eye represents. I don't know if that's the meaning behind the eyes on Horus, the character. But, you know, it'd be interesting if it was, no?
How might things have turned out differently? Would he still have risen to become the War Master? He's often spoke of as being the best of us by his brothers, How much of that is due to him being the first and being able to learn under the Emperor himself? Or how much of it is just natural? Because that was the way he was made to be. Because he was made to be the first among the equals. It's a really interesting topic to debate, and definitely something I'd like to debate in the future. Second found, the Wolf King himself, Leman Russ. Now we actually get to see Russ and Horus's first meeting in the Horus heresy novel Wolfsbane, which long-time subscribers will know I absolutely love. If you haven't read Wolfsbane, then be sure to go back and check it out. It really highlights the relationship between Russ and Horus so fantastically well. And
I haven't watched it, but is that how big are the time gaps between where they were found? Like, were they found during the same year? Were they years apart before they were found? Like, because that would make a big difference, right? I'm assuming they weren't all found in 1 year.
really see the seeds of jealousy sown in Horus at the finding of his first brother, with the knowledge he will have to share the attention of their father the Emperor for the first time, that he no longer has all the spotlight to himself. Now, I was quite surprised when I first learnt that Russ was the second found Primarch behind Horus, but when thinking about his character, it actually makes a lot of sense to me. Russ is absolute in his loyalty to his father the Emperor, and the Emperor in turn has no doubts about Russ's loyalty. There's a great line the Emperor speaks to Malcador about Russ being his executioner, and that his axe falls on those deserving its smile, or something similar to that effect. I covered it in The Emperor Speaks About the Primarchs upload a while back, and it's one of those really interesting highlighting conversations of how the Emperor feels about his sons. Russ does feel he's superior to many of his brothers, and yes, with his feral warrior upbringing on Fenris, you'd expect no less. However, when you consider he was second found only to Horus, it makes Russ's personality all the more understandable, particularly in such situations as trying to teach Angron, for example. On to the third found.
Actually, it does make sense, actually. I mean, you know he's really loyal. Is that because he's got dog in him? Like, he's got part wolf. Like, is that why he's loyal? Because dogs are loyal? Is like... That probably is the answer, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, he's kind of hot-headed, right, Leman Russ, and that could be a thingy, because he said Horus was jealous of him being found and having to share it, so you'd assume Leman Russ had to, not maybe physically fight, right, but if anyone has a younger brother, you know, they will try and, you might try and withhold the information, you might try and take advantage of them a little bit, but you know, they're going to fight back. And Leman Russ probably done a lot of fighting back against Horus and a lot of thinking to become equal with him, I guess. And Horus didn't like the fact that now this guy's taken away all his attention. So, I mean, you could see why there could be a rift there. I know Leman Russ fought Horus when he turned to Chaos, but, you know, Leman Russ is a bit of a psycho.
Deleted from Imperial records. One of the lost Primarchs was the third found. Now that's really interesting. We don't know when or why he was removed, shall we say, but we do have strong hints that Russ and the Space Wolves were used in exacting the Emperor's judgment. And it has to be said, this particular one must have been pretty hard for Russ, his next found brother. Of course, there's always possibility they didn't get on, but let's assume for the moment they did. This would have been Russ's longest relationship with any other Primarch, save Horus himself. If this was indeed the first lost Primarch to fall, it must have been terribly conflicting for Russ. Then of course...
With that point, I don't agree, because how do we know that Primarch came into the fold and was part of the thing? How do we know that the Emperor didn't find him and didn't even introduce him to Russ and Horus and just said, go kill him? Like, I don't know if he was actually brought in as another Primarch to join it. I need to know who these two Primarchs that were killed or lost are, man. It's not fair. Why are they hiding it? Like, just release it, bro. Just tell us who they are and why they died.
Of course, we have Horus's anger at finding out Malcador was removing the statues of the two lost Primarchs. It could well give us a bigger understanding of Horus's emotions and rationale when we know that one of them was Horus's oldest known brother besides Leman, who he didn't get on with particularly well. By the time the third Primarch was found, Horus could have come to terms with having brothers a lot more, and fostered a much greater relationship with the next one. It really opens up amazing avenues for future stories, knowing one of the earliest found Primarchs was also one of the lost ones. The fourth found Primarch, Ferrus Manus. Now this makes a lot of sense to me. Ferrus was famously loyal to his father over his best friend brother in Fulgrim. Hugely stubborn in his approach, feeling that his way was best. And the Emperor seemed to have a fondness for the Gorgon too. Ferrus Manus being one of the earliest found Primarchs at number 4 makes all the sense in the world.
Might make sense. Didn't stop him from getting his head decapitated though by his favourite brother.
The fifth found son, Fulgrim. Another one that makes a lot of sense. We know Fulgrim and Ferrus established a firm bond of brotherhood, so much so that Fulgrim would attempt to sway his brother to the side of chaos at the outbreak of the heresy. And again, like Ferrus, Fulgrim certainly would have an air of superiority about him. The sixth found Vulcan. Now,
Vulcan looks like Thanos. He actually does look like Thanos, dude. Hey man, Fulgrim is the guy I got in the Primarch quiz. If you haven't seen that video, go check it out. Or Thanos, so let's go.
We actually get to see more of Vulcan's interactions with the Emperor than a lot of his brothers. And it makes sense that he would be one of the earlier found Primarchs. When you would assume the Emperor was able to dedicate more time to his sons. We also get to see Ferrus's first meeting with Vulcan in the Sons of the Emperor book, which again is an amazing read. Definitely go check it out if you haven't. Seventh found Rogal Dorn. Now I don't know why, but I expected Rogal to be further up this list. Maybe it's because he was the Emperor's Praetorian on his return to Terra. Maybe it's just his stubbornness and dedication to the Great Crusade and his father's vision. I don't know. But him being high on the list is no surprise. I just thought he'd be right up the top. And it makes particular sense to me in aiding his view of looking down upon his brother Alpharius. Dorn, the seventh found son, Alpharius, the last and 20th. On to the eighth found Primarch, roboute guilliman himself. Now this was another surprise to me, in that I expected roboute to be later on the list. Yes, we know Guilliman and the Ultramarines amassed the largest legion in the 500 Empire world of Ultramar, but I guess my line of thinking on this came from the Unremembered Empire series, where roboute very much looks up to the Lion, and even refers to him as his big brother. Obviously, this is because the Lion is the first Primarch, and his Dark Angels are the first Legion, which doesn't necessarily mean first found, as we know. But it's interesting how it can shape your perceptions. Guilliman was actually around longer than the Lion. The ninth found Primarch, Magnus the Red.
I like Magnus. Shout out to Magnus.
Again, I expected Magnus perhaps to be a little earlier on this list. The way he talks about his relationship with the Emperor to his brothers, he certainly comes across at times like the brother who threatens to run and tell dad at any brotherly argument, especially in his confrontation with Curze. But he was psychically talking and communicating with his father long before the Emperor ever made it to Prospero. So he could well have been talking with his father before one or even more of his brothers were found. Really interesting to know whereabouts they started communicating. The 10th found son, Sanguinius, the angel most beloved by all. There is precious little written about Sanguinius and his interactions with the Emperor. We know he is steadfastly loyal, but please, Black Library, show us why. Show us the Emperor meeting his son Sanguinius, his reaction to the angel's wings. Show us their first conversations, why the Emperor was not worried about this mutation, or even was it secretly part of the Emperor's design. We see plenty of Sanguinius and Horus together, establishing their relationship, of course to set up their devastating duel aboard the Vengeful Spirit. But again, we need to see more of why Sanguinius never sided with his most beloved brother Horus, and why he remained with the Emperor. The 11th found Lion L. Johnson. The Lion, the first, but the 11th found. Always keeping himself at a distance from his brothers, but 100% loyal to his father.
He does seem like the oldest brother, doesn't he? Lionel Johnson. He probably was the first created, considering First Legion. I think that does mean first created, right? He keeps distance, and I think everyone has a respect for him, and he's loyal. He does seem like the oldest brother, you know what I mean?
So much so that the Emperor never even doubts the Lion. In his conversation with Malcador, the Emperor sounds surprised that Malcador even considers the possibility of the Lion turning. Like it's just an absolute impossibility. We're blessed with the Lion interacting with his brothers, but again, we have virtually nothing in regards to his interactions with his father. Perhaps show us a side to the Lion we don't often get to see, an honest and open Lion L. Johnson, because we know he would have been with the Emperor. The 12th found Primarch, Perturabo. We do start to get a little heavier on the traitor Primarchs now, which of course could be mere coincidence. Perturabo, no doubt unhappy that Dorn was found before him. He's always been one of the hardest Primarchs for me to figure out, so being kind of in the middle of the pack sounds, well, just about right to me. The 13th found Primarch,
Mortarion. It does make sense that more traitor Primarchs would have spent less time with the others and with the Emperor, right? Their loyalty would be less in that sense, because all the most loyal ones have pretty much been found at this point, and it makes sense Horus being the first found would be the first to turn as well. It does make sense.
Mortarion, the Primarch who rebels against authority. I'm not sure where I would place Mortarion's finding, so I can't really have any disagreement with this one. The 14th found Primarch, Lorgar. Now, while of course Lorgar ultimately turned traitor, he was, if anything to begin with, fanatically loyal to the Emperor. 15th found son, Jaghatai Khan. The conundrum that is Jaghatai, always operating to the beat of his own drum. It's no surprise for him to be this late on the list. It does pose the interesting question, however, would he be any different had he been found earlier?
Nope.
Personally, I don't think so. The Khan is as what he was designed to be. 16th found son,
Konrad
Curze. The tragic tale of Curze is one of the saddest of all the Primarchs.
Definitely probably would have helped him if the Emperor found him quicker, wouldn't it?
Would his tale have been any different had the Emperor found him earlier? Would being under the Emperor's tutelage have helped him manage his gift of prophecy better? You'd have to think it would. How different the heresy could have been. Had Konrad never become the monster that is the Night Haunter? A loyal Konrad Curze, son of the Emperor, refusing to side with Horus. Now that's an interesting thought. The 17th found Primarch, Angron. Let's be real here, there's no surprises with this one. Most probably the most estranged of all the Emperor's relationships. I'd very much like to see the Emperor's viewpoint and thoughts on his meeting with Angron. We certainly know how Angron feels about his father. The 18th found Primarch, Corax. Now this is where things hit a minor snag, in that early in the Heresy series the Emperor told Corax he had 18 brothers, and he would speak of the fallen to another day. So for my personal headcanon, it works better to swap Corax from 18th to 19th. It is worth noting, however, that Corax is absolutely loyal to the Emperor, and it indeed appears to have a very close relationship with him. The Emperor speaks to Corax personally upon his return to Terra, when Malcador refuses to allow Corax an audience. and the Emperor even grants him access to the secrets of the Primarch project, which does throw shade at the notion of the later found sons not being as loyal due to the time they were found. The 19th found Primarch, deleted from Imperial records. As stated, I think it makes more sense to switch this one around with Corax in regards to his conversation with the Emperor. But it does highlight a very interesting point that most of the Primarchs were found when at least one of their brothers was found wanting. From Deliverance Lost, it would only be Corax and Alpharius who were not found. From this order, they may all have been, or possibly only Alpharius. It does raise the question on why was the heresy such a shock to the Primarchs, when most of them had already experienced at least one of their brothers having to face their father's judgment. We know Russ was involved in having to exact this, so if not heresy and turning against the Emperor and their brothers, what else could it have been? We know the Primarchs were told of it at least, as they are all sworn to never speak of it, or even mention their names. And finally, the 20th found Primarch, Alpharius, or Alpharius and Omegon. And yes, people, the Emperor did know about the twins. I mean, come on, he created them in an incubator, so he'd be hard-pressed to not notice it. The question is, why did he keep it a secret? It's very much worth mentioning here the final found Primarch was loyal. In his own way, of course. Alpharius sided with Horus to win the long war against chaos and achieve ultimate victory for humanity.
Okay, that's the end of that. My thoughts. Like, I do think in some placements it makes sense, but I think in some it just doesn't really matter. Like, the Horus one makes sense that he would be the traitor because he was the closest to the Emperor, and he's been under the Emperor's tutelage for the longest, you know. It makes sense that his betrayal would probably hurt the Emperor most, right? So his betrayal makes sense. Maybe if it was another guy who was leading the traitor legions, the Emperor wouldn't have hesitated just to kill them, right? Leman Russ makes sense that he was second because he killed the other two unknown Primarchs. And it makes sense the guys who were found in like the top 10. It makes sense that some of the more obscure guys like Konrad and angron and perturabo were found later, right? Because if they were found earlier, they probably wouldn't have turned traitor, if you get what I mean. Especially Konrad. Konrad, if he was under more guidance and he didn't turn himself fully insane, you know, if he was found earlier, I think that would have been cool. One that surprised me that was kind of late, maybe Sanguinius. I thought he might have been a bit earlier, but apart from that, I think everybody was. And you can see kind of like where the rivalries come. I mean, ferrus, manus, and fulgrim were found literally side by side almost, so you know that makes them best friends, I guess. Sanguinius probably came in and went straight under being tutored by Horus, you know what I mean? And who else was close? I mean, rogal, dorn, and fighting alpharius and killing him makes sense considering they were on opposite sides of being found, right? Rogal was found early. Magnus was right in the middle. I mean, most people were kind of where you expected them. I didn't think Corvus was so late on, but hey, he was pretty much the last one. But yeah, man, this is the first time watching Wolflord Row. I think his content is different. Obviously, he's not on the level of like subscribers as some of the other dudes, but yo, this was interesting. His style is a bit more slow and, you know, what's the word? It's a bit more slow and methodical than others. He takes his time to explain and stuff like that. And I think this was a good idea for him to do this video, bro. Interesting. I don't know if we'll check more of him out. If you guys enjoyed, maybe we will. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you're new to the channel, of course. You can check out my Warhammer playlist on the end screen. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.